She's just a security guard, my dad laughed, loud enough for the entire wedding hall to hear. The guests chuckled. Some even smirked, their eyes turning toward me like I was the biggest embarrassment in the family. My cheeks burned, but I stayed quiet, holding back the storm inside me. They thought I was nothing but a uniform and a flashlight. What they didn't know was that tomorrow, my face would be on every major news channel across the country. Before I go further, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and share this story. Trust me, you'll want to hear how it ends. My cousin Sarah whispered loud enough for others to catch. Imagine bragging about your daughter being a guard. That's not a career, that's just standing around. People laughed again, clinking their glasses, while Dad proudly introduced my brother Ethan as the real success in the family, bragging about his new law firm. I stood there, feeling the weight of every mocking glance, every whispered word, every fake smile. But deep inside, I wasn't broken. I was waiting. Because none of them knew about the secret project I'd been leading for months, the one that was about to change the entire city. The humiliation tonight was fuel, and when the world woke up tomorrow, it wouldn't be Ethan's name or Sarah's face they'd see. It would be mine, and when that moment came, they'd wish they had treated me differently. The very next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Headlines splashed across every news outlet. Annie Martinez leads groundbreaking city security innovation, hailed as a hero. My picture was everywhere. Me standing in front of the mayor. Shaking hands, cameras flashing. The very same uniform my family mocked was now the symbol of power and respect. But before that news reached them, I was still sitting at the breakfast table, silent, while my dad went on about Ethan's bright future. Mom chimed in. At least one of our kids makes us proud. I wanted to laugh, but I bit my tongue, because I knew in just a few hours their smug faces would shatter. Ethan leaned across the table with that fake lawyer smile. Annie, maybe one day you'll do something meaningful. Until then, keep guarding parking lots. The table erupted in laughter again. My fists tightened, but instead of snapping back, I calmly checked my phone, seeing thousands of notifications pouring in. I stayed quiet. Patience was my weapon. Then it happened. Uncle Rick's phone buzzed. He looked down, his face drained of color, then shot up to stare at me. Wait, is this you on the news? His voice cracked, and suddenly the entire room froze. My dad grabbed the phone, eyes narrowing in disbelief. The same people who mocked me just hours earlier were now staring at the headline that crowned me as the city's unexpected hero. And I hadn't even told them the biggest part. Yet, my dad's hand shook as he held the phone closer, his voice trembling. This can't be real. But the pictures didn't lie. There I was, standing beside the mayor, being called the brain behind the most advanced security system in the city. Overnight, the same uniform they laughed at had turned into a badge of honor. The room went dead silent. Mom's fork slipped from her hand, clattering on the plate. Sarah, who had mocked me just last night, whispered under her breath, "No, it's impossible." Ethan leaned forward, trying to act calm, but his voice betrayed him. What exactly did you do, Annie?" I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding with satisfaction. For years I stayed quiet while they mocked my job, thinking I was wasting my life. What they never knew was that while working those long shifts as a security guard, I was studying, building connections, and secretly designing a system that could outsmart hackers, thieves, and even corrupt officials. The government had noticed. Investors had noticed. And now the world noticed too. Uncle Rick cleared his throat, reading aloud from his phone. City declares Annie Martinez's innovation the future of public safety. Multi-million-dollar contract signed. His voice cracked halfway through, and everyone's jaws dropped. Dad tried to cover his shock with a bitter laugh. Well, good for you, Annie. But money isn't everything. Dad, I interrupted for the first time, my voice steady but sharp. It's not just money. It's respect, something you never gave me. Last night, you called me just a guard. This morning, the whole city calls me a visionary. The silence that followed was louder than all their insults combined. Sarah fumbled with her napkin, avoiding my eyes. Mom looked pale, as if reality had slapped her across the face. Ethan, however, wasn't done. His pride couldn't handle it. So what? One project doesn't make you better than me. I'm still the lawyer in this family. I gave him a cold smile. Then maybe you should check the evening press release. Because guess whose system your firm just got hired to defend in court? Ethan's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The same family who once mocked me now sat frozen, realizing that every arrogant word they'd thrown my way was about to come back like a boomerang, harder than they ever imagined. And I wasn't even close to done with them. Dad pushed back his chair so hard it screeched across the floor. His face was red, a mix of anger and humiliation. This is ridiculous. You're making it sound like we treated you badly. We only wanted the best for you, Annie. His voice shook, not from care, but from fear of losing control. I laughed softly, shaking my head. The best? Dad, last night you told an entire wedding hall I was nothing more than a guard. Do you realize how many eyes turned on me like I was a failure you needed to hide? Mom tried to jump in, her voice brittle. You have to understand, Annie. People talk. We didn't want you embarrassed. I leaned forward, my words slicing through the air. No, Mom, you were embarrassed. Not by what I was doing, but by how small you thought it made you look. You never once asked what I was building, what I was sacrificing, or why I worked double shifts. You only cared about appearances. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. Enough with this drama. You think because of one contract you're suddenly better than all of us? Don't fool yourself, Annie. People like you get one lucky break and then fade away. Before I could answer, Uncle Rick spoke again, his eyes glued to his phone. Ethan, you might want to read this carefully. He passed the phone across the table. Ethan snatched it, scanned the screen, and his jaw dropped. The headline read, Martinez Security partners with federal agencies for national expansion. My system wasn't just in one city anymore. It was about to roll out across the country. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. My dad's lips trembled, his voice barely a whisper. Federal agencies? I met his gaze, steady and cold. The same agencies that laughed at my first proposal 3 years ago now call me indispensable. Funny how the tables turn. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind that come from pride. These were tears of regret. Sarah looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor, and Ethan, for the first time in his life, had no words. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the tile. Last night you humiliated me in front of everyone. Today, the entire country is watching me rise. And tomorrow, I paused, letting the silence build like thunder. Tomorrow, you'll realize you're no longer the ones holding the power in this family. The room was heavy, every breath thick with tension. They thought they had seen the worst of their shame, but the real shock was still waiting for them at the gala that evening. The gala hall shimmered with chandeliers, cameras flashing from every corner as city officials, business leaders, and even federal representatives filled the seats. My name was on the banner across the stage. Annie Martinez, Innovator of the Year. The same family who once whispered behind my back now sat front row, invited only because I put their names on the guest list, so they could watch me shine. Dad kept his arms crossed, trying to mask the storm on his face. Mom's hands twisted nervously in her lap. Ethan stared at the stage with a clenched jaw, and Sarah looked like she might faint at any moment. The mayor stepped up first, praising my system for protecting millions of people. Applause thundered across the hall. Then I was called to the stage. My heels clicked against the floor, echoing through the silence that fell as I faced the microphone. I let the crowd settle before I spoke. For years I was told I was nothing, that my work was meaningless, that I was just a guard. Even my own family said I'd never matter. My voice cracked, not from weakness, but from holding back the fire inside me. But today I stand before you, not just as a guard, but as the woman who built the system that will keep this country safe. Gasps rippled through the audience, followed by a wave of applause so loud it shook the room. I glanced down at my family, their faces pale, their pride shattered. Then I dropped the final blow. And because of this project, I'm not just an employee anymore. I'm the majority shareholder of the company every law firm in this city now answers to, including my brother Ethan's. Ethan's face drained of all color. He leaned back in his chair, speechless, while the guests erupted in cheers. Dad's jaw tightened. his eyes glistening with the weight of his downfall. Mom covered her mouth, tears spilling as she realized what they had lost. I raised my award high in the air. To everyone who was ever underestimated, mocked, or told they were nothing, remember this. The same people who laugh at you today will clap for you tomorrow. Never let their doubt define your future. The hall rose to its feet, the sound of applause echoing like thunder. My family sat frozen in the front row, forced to witness the power shift they never saw coming. And as the cameras flashed, capturing their shame and my triumph, I finally smiled. Not just because I'd won, but because they could never erase this moment.